Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and apologies for that inability to speak that just happened there. How are you, Courtney?
You know, I'm fine. I have been sleeping for 2 days because I came back to the real world after being away for 2 weeks. And it's still busy here. My
Yeah,
jobs
it didn't
didn't quit.
stop.
They
Yeah.
still exist. But I'm good. My bestie Rachel got married while we were away. And it was incredible. We had a beautiful ceremony. So that's why I went home a little early for the holidays. And it was just a really nice weekend. I got to see her a lot. I got to see her now husband a lot. And it was just a good time. A lot of good time seeing old friends and dancing and eating. I ate so much at their wedding. They had so much good food.
Gosh, I believe it.
Um, yeah, that kind of was my like first week out since we've talked on the podcast. It was
Yeah.
just like wedding stuff and like hanging out with my family down south and just kind of relaxing and chilling. How are you?
I have definitely been better.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
for those of you who don't know, which should be no one who listens to this podcast because if you listened to all of 2022, you'll know that it was a fucking shit year for me. And it just like really wanted to say fuck you one last time before the year ended. So I did not spend Christmas with my family because I was stranded in a driving ban in a blizzard that had category one level winds and killed 31 people.
Hmm.
Um, and it was the first year in 30 years my mom had no kids in her house for Christmas morning, which was like tragic. Um, and then we had some damage to the old house because of the storm. And so while we were there trying to get the last stuff out of the house, I fell down the stairs and bruised my tailbone so hard that I can't actually sit. I am sitting on a heating pad and a pillow to be able to record this. It, it's just, fantastic.
Bless your heart.
But before all of the tragedy, actually somewhere in the middle of that, because it was during the Christmas break week, so it was sometime in the middle of this hot mess of the last 2 weeks of my life, I thought of you because we ordered from a restaurant that we had never ordered takeout from before.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't remember what it was called, but it was like something generic, like two people's names. And so like I didn't know what to expect when I looked at
Right.
the menu, but it was New Orleans style food.
Was it though? Was it really?
No.
Oh,
Yeah. Um,
I love it.
the beignets were too heavy. That was my one complaint was the beignets were too heavy. They're really hard to get done well. And I was
That
like, and
happens
to
sometimes in New Orleans too, though. Like if
right.
you don't go to the right place.
I was
So
like, to be fair, I've only ever had beignets that I made myself with Cafe Du Monde's mix or from Cafe Beignet. So
uh,
like that's the two like top beignet places in New Orleans.
right.
So I have pretty high standards. So the beignets were not great. They looked more like hush puppies, so I already knew they weren't going to be good
Mm,
because the dough was just the wrong shape.
yeah.
Um, but I had shrimp and grits,
Oh,
and
Shepherd's.
like it was like real, like there were like chunks of onions and corn in the grits, like legit.
Hmm.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I don't want all that in my shrimp and grits.
But like it wasn't like
I like a different
overwhelming.
sauce than mine. Well, I don't like corn or onions,
That's fair.
so that's a problem. But I
But
like
it
it
was
to be a little more saucy on top, but the grits to be kind
mm,
of a creamy, like flavorful, but like not like they just put a ton of butter in it. Like I like butter in my grits. Don't
mm,
get me wrong.
right.
But I
No, but
want to
this
like
this was
taste
like
grits.
it was like when I looked at it, the color was orange.
Hmm.
And I was worried it was gonna be too spicy, but then it wasn't. It was just like really well seasoned. And I was like,
See, and I like a little more spice to mine too.
which is fair,
So
but
I love a good blackened shrimp and grits.
yeah.
Ugh,
No,
top notch.
this was just like, but like but like my dad had some gumbo
I
and
also
it
don't
was,
really care for
well, we just got the things that we could tell if they would like knew what they were doing.
Yeah. I can tell you if they're doing it right or not. I just don't want to.
Which is fine. Um, but yeah, so that was I just closed the tab that had all of my trivia on it. What am I doing?
Did you also think of me because I texted you like every 12 hours and I was like, are you still alive? Are you alive now?
It was a day. It was a struggle. Well, and because I had so much free time with being stuck in the storm and everything that I just like edited all of the podcasts for the whole winter break, like the third day of break, and then
Ugh,
like
such a
pretended
pro.
the podcast didn't exist for a week and a half.
So I tried really hard to just like do podcasty things because I was also not doing anything. Like I sat at my family's house and like binge watched TV shows. The amount of TV shows
Yeah,
I've seen and movies I've seen, incredible. Nothing better to do with my time. Um,
absolutely.
but my parents have terrible internet.
Mm.
You can do like they did buy an internet extender thing, and
Hmm.
so like I can use my phone now while I'm there, which is
Which, to
nice.
be fair, it was one of the reasons why I wasn't texting you as much because last time you were there, I didn't even
Yeah,
text you.
right. Yeah, yeah. So it was a little better this time, but Canva, for the life of me, Canva did not want to work. Like I was trying to create stuff for a nonprofit for unseen artist nonprofit I work with, and I was like, I got like two things made, and then I just gave up, and I was like, I can't do anything else with Canva. So
Yeah, it was
good.
played a lot of Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm. I played a lot of Disney Dreamlight.
I also became like Martha fucking Stewart, let me tell
Look at
you.
you.
Because I was like trapped with Dan and we had nothing to do. And it was just the two of us because Douglas decided to go out into the storm,
Oh,
and then
bless his
he
heart.
spent the storm at a fire station.
Well, well,
Yeah.
you know.
But I made an apple cobbler with homemade cardamom biscuits.
Yum.
It was so good.
I would love that.
Oh, I saved the recipe because it was like the best thing I
Ugh,
ever made. We made Joanna Gaines overnight French toast bake.
how was that? So
So
good.
good.
Ugh, I knew it.
It made avocado fries in the air fryer. We also made homemade air fryer chicken parm. We
Mm,
made our homemade carbonara. It was just, I was like, I feel so domestic. We were like fake living together because it was a blizzard and we just made a lot of food.
so that's usually what I do when I go home for the holidays. And I made pigs in a blanket. That was all I made this year.
Fantastic.
I didn't make anything because I literally, when I tell you, I just sat and slept and ate this entire like holiday season.
I mean, but like, when is the last time you did that? When you were not
Oh my
ill?
God, like 20 years ago. It's
Exactly.
been ages.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was nice. I didn't do anything. My dad made steak. Yum.
Nice. Nice.
My aunt cooked me breakfast every morning when I was staying with her and woke me up and we had breakfast till 7 a.m. And then I'd be up for like an hour and then I'd go back to sleep.
I love it.
It was so nice.
It's,
Incredible.
yeah.
So it was nice having real food that I also did not
Yeah.
hear.
You know? You know what else is nice?
What is that?
Coming into 2023, spiritually at peace.
You know, you're very right. And
Yeah.
because of that, I did not choose a darker leaning spirituality quote this time. I know the last
Fantastic.
few times I've gone a little.
Kind of attacked me. It's fine.
It's fine. This one is lovely. You got to start romanticizing your life. You got to start believing that your morning commute is cute and fun, that every cup of coffee is the best you've ever had, that even the smallest and most mundane things are exciting and new. You have to, because that's when you start truly living. That's when you look forward to every day.
I love that.
Right? Me too. Me too. It makes me so happy.
You know what else I love most of the time?
What is that?
Stargate.
I bet you're all very pleased that we are back to normal Stargate.
But here's the thing. We posted this on Instagram today,
Yes.
which doesn't help you because it
Alert.
actually, if you were trying to watch last week's episode, which I told you over break, or I told you like what happened is I told you, but it was after we had already finished filming, and so it was
Yeah.
like too late to put it into the podcast.
And you told me it was leaving, but I didn't know where. I don't know if we talked about where it went. And we may have. I just didn't
We
remember.
did, yeah, we did. But like I said, you guys know, Courtney and I like bulk recorded, and then she went away, and so like I found out in this information after we had finished recording everything.
Like
So it
two
was
days
too,
after.
yeah. So it was like too late to like go and put it in the podcast. But on December 30th, and not even December 31st. That was the thing that pissed me off about it. It wasn't even December 31st. It wasn't even like an end of the 2022 thing. It was like December 30th, 2022. Fuck your feelings. Stargate is leaving again.
Again. For 1 month. 1 month we had, where was it? Hulu? Amazon? I don't remember where it was.
It was on Amazon Prime
Amazon
because
Prime for 1 month.
what happened was, and this is the thing that's shisty about it.
Mm,
Amazon, as a conglomeration, has purchased MGM.
right.
So then you're like, oh, great, that means Stargate on Amazon. But
No.
no, nay, nay, I say, because Amazon is also currently in the process of redoing the MGM streaming service so that Epics, which is MGM streaming, will be added to Amazon like an add-on, like where Paramount and BritBox and Acorn and all of those things are. So Stargate is gone again because then you'll have to buy Epics and have another streaming package in your Amazon package.
But it's okay. By then you can delete Peacock because we'll be done with Bates Motel. And then you can sign
And
Peacock.
just transfer your money. Oh
Yeah.
my God. But it is on Pluto TV for free. It just has commercials. So if you are watching along with us and you do not have DVDs,
Those are the longest commercials I've ever watched in my life.
they are, to be fair, there's like 3 commercials, but then they just do like a full like 3 minutes of commercials each time instead of like
And they
doing
do like
multiple.
holiday lights at the end of every commercial. It was insane watching it
It
today.
was also I was watching it while I was at Shay's working Elf, the musical, which
Yeah.
it was a horrible thing because Elf was supposed to start on the 26th, but the storm started on the 23rd, and then Buffalo didn't get cleaned up until the 27th or 28th. So Elf was supposed to be at Shay's from the 26th to the 31st, and then it ended up only being at Shay's for the 29th, 30th, and 31st. So I'm sitting there working one of the only 4 performances of the show that was supposed to have like 15 performances. And every ad during Stargate was telling me to go buy tickets for the show. And I was like,
I'm here. I think they're done now.
I was like, also, Alpha Musical, 2.5 hours long.
That's longer than the movie.
Correct.
Was it good?
I didn't care for it.
I didn't see
I
that.
didn't watch it that hard because I didn't want to be at work, but like also I just did not care for it.
Fair.
But anyway, so it is on Pluto TV with commercials for the time being. Also, I have a DVD box set, so come watch it with me if you want.
Unless you're a serial killer, and then please do not do that.
Correct. Like ask me before you do. Like don't just show up at my house because then I will want to know how you found out where I live.
Right, right.
But needless to say, we had to watch it somewhere. So because unfortunately, we're 2 seasons in
We are committed now.
and it is too late to turn back. So we watched Stargate SG-1 Season 2, Episode 21, the penultimate episode of the season, which you think would then be related to anything that happened this season.
Anything else?
It was not.
Mhm.
It is entitled 1969, and it was rated 8.7 stars. It is also a fan favorite episode, and in a British poll of the 10 best Stargate episodes of all time, it is the number 4.
Why?
That is a great question.
And what's it rated on IMDb?
8.7.
8.7. Like it's
Um,
rated higher than some of the others as well. Just I don't
yeah,
really understand the fan favoritism. Like,
I didn't hate it.
no, it's fine.
But like it's just not related to anything we've done, and it's in a place in the season where you would think that they would want it, and I don't think it's all that groundbreaking.
It's not groundbreaking. I rewrote the title of the episode. I'll tell you later. But so like I already have a lot of feelings about it. I think there were so
Yeah,
many things that could have been
yeah,
done differently and more interesting because it was not related.
yeah.
So I have thoughts.
Mhm. So, and also just like because it's so different, having it ranked that high is surprising to me because I feel like people who like are true like Stargate fans wouldn't have liked it. I don't know. It feels weird that that's the rating.
Yeah.
But it did appear on the television for the first time on March 5th of 1999. I was about to turn 7 in 3 weeks. I
I
don't know
was
what I.
half a year away from 7.
The number one song was still "Angel of Mine" by Monica, and the number one book was still "The Testament" by John Grisham. The number one movie was a movie that I haven't seen that I
Okay.
recall, but I have at least heard of it, which is better than some of the movies
That
we've
is
been
better.
getting. It's called Analyze This.
Yes, I have not seen it either, but
It
I have
is
also heard of it.
it is a mafia comedy by Harold Ramis. He directed it and co-wrote it. And it stars Robert De Niro as a mob boss and Billy Crystal as his shrink.
I think I would love it because first of all,
Yeah,
I love those guys and I love mafia movies. So,
right. I've definitely heard about it. I don't know if I've seen it. There was also a sequel in like 2003 called Analyze That.
oh yeah. I don't know that I
And
realized that was the sequel now that you say.
right. Yeah, I don't think I realized it was a sequel either until I was reading about it. But it seems like something that would absolutely be up my alley in terms of like 90s bad mafia comedies.
Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
Sure. Um, the events that happened that day were not that exciting. 1999 was not the most exciting year in the world, apparently. Although this is still early in 1999, I can't wait until we get to later in 1999. Also, here's the bruise on my arm from when I fell down the stairs. It's really cute. Um,
Or Y2K time.
for Y2K time, yeah. But this day, March 5th, 1999, was the day Madison Beer was born. She's a singer, like a pop singer now who's like popular. Um, but she's young enough that she was born in 1999.
Right. So I don't know who she is, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Got it.
It was also the day that Nunavut, the province in Canada, elected its first premier. Like it was the first election where it was a province, not a territory.
Oh,
Yeah, so they elected their first premier that day. So like there are two very different spectrums of news.
very different. Yeah, I followed music premiere. I was like, did they have a movie premiere? I
No,
was like, what?
no, premiers
Then I
are what
followed.
you call like the governor of a province.
Yes, I follow now. I
Yes.
follow now. I just
Yeah.
did it first.
So that's that day. It was directed by Charles Correll, who previously directed the episode The Knox.
Ah,
Um, and it was written by Brad Wright with story editing by Tor Alexander Valenza.
all right. We are
Yeah.
back at it.
Our guest star was Alex Zahara. He played Michael. And this was not his first role on the show, but it was the first time that we saw his face because the last time he was on the show was in the episode Spirits, where he played Zels, the alien that pretended to be a crow.
Yes, yes.
Um, uh, he's known for movies like Horns, Open Range 2012, and The 13th Warrior. He has 161 credits, but they're all mostly like one-off TV things. Um, the few shows that he was in where he had roles that lasted more than one episode were Batwoman, Riverdale, The Man in the High Castle, and Once Upon a Time.
Ah, Joel Delafite.
Yes,
With
exactly.
Horns, the movie with Daniel Radcliffe.
Yes, Horns was a
Oh,
great
nice.
movie until the last 5 minutes. I will tell
Well,
you
don't
right
know what
now.
happens.
I won't tell you what happens, but I will tell you that I was so super into the movie, and then the last 5 minutes introduced gore for the first time in the movie at all for no
For
reason.
no
It was one of
reason.
those things where I was like, if the whole movie had been gory, I would have been with you.
Fine. Yeah.
If there had been a plot purpose for that scene being as gory as it was, I would have been with you. But they just were like, we've sucked people in. The movie's about to end. Let's
Blood.
fuck. And I was like, no, thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to watch it.
Yeah,
Except I love Daniel Radcliffe, so.
me too. Um, well, so we start the episode with the team in the gate room, except Sam. She's fixing something in the computer that will make sure that they don't have any space-time warping because they're moving very close to the sun.
Hmm.
Um, Sam has a very nasty cut on her hand that Hammond notices and then gives her a weird note and tells her not to take it out of her vest pocket, which is super weird and cryptic. And I was already, I mean, I knew the episode was called 1969,
Yeah.
which kind of tells you what the episode's about. And also, I knew that they were going to time travel. Um, uh, but I was like, can't imagine what that's about.
I know.
Um, so they go through the gate and they come back out into what looks suspiciously like their own gate room, and then the gate disappears and they're just standing under a rocket.
And I love the like effects of it disappearing.
Yeah, that was
I thought that was
pretty.
cool.
Um, the rocket is about to do a test burn, and they all start losing their absolute fucking minds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Teal'c is like, "What is a test burn?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "It's exactly what it sounds like." So they're all like running, trying to get out of there, except for Teal'c, who's just like casually standing under the rocket. And
Right.
then he just pulls out his Zat gun and shoots the fucking rocket.
Yeah, I was like, is that a new device? I wasn't sure if it was the Zat gun. I was like, that
No,
is,
this episode suddenly proved to us that Zap guns work on objects also, but they did it in a way that I believed them because
yeah,
then when he does that, Jack's like, "How did you know that was going to work?" And he's like, "I didn't."
yeah,
So then when they do things with the Zap gun on objects later, I'm like, "Okay, well, we discovered that this is when they discover that that
right,
happens." So like at least it wasn't just like a, "Oh, we've known all along that the Zap gun can disappear fucking objects."
right. And I will say, like, under the lines of like, this episode doesn't have anything super groundbreaking, doesn't really connect. It's still written so well.
Yes.
And
No,
it's probably one
I
of the
don't
better
hate
written ones.
yeah, I don't hate the episode at
Yeah,
all. And a lot of what they talk about time travel is then used. Like think about how many of the shows that we think about now didn't exist at that time. Like how
right.
many of these shows that we watch that are sci-fi that are time travel didn't exist. So it's not that it's incredibly groundbreaking.
Or even some older shows that have like Doctor Who that have newer episodes that follow some of the same guidelines like this episode used.
Right. Like if
So
you compare if you compare what happened in Doctor Who, like historical episodes in the 60s and 70s to what happens in Doctor Who historical episodes now, there's very much the non-interventionism that was in this episode now and not before. Like Doctor Who has an episode that I've never seen because it doesn't exist anymore because it's from the first season of the show from 1963 and the videotapes don't exist. But I've read the book that came out at the same time. And it's called Marco Polo. And they go back in the past and they end up going meeting Marco Polo. And then they just fucking like travel with Marco Polo to China and are part of his expedition. No. Like that's not how that works. Whereas like in the most not the most recent season, but in a newer season of Doctor Who, they go back in time to Rosa Parks and the Alabama bus boycott, and they literally are like, you cannot stop
Right.
her from sitting, like staying on the bus. That will like fuck up the entire history of America.
Yeah. And it's called, I don't know if you're getting into this later, if you want to get into it now, because I've got some
Oh,
notes.
well, it's called different things in different contexts.
Right. So they called it the grandfather effect here. But when I
Yes.
was looking it up, it looks like more people refer to it as the grandfather I've
They call it the grandfather paradox.
paradox. That's what I was looking for.
Yes. But I'm trying to think of what
Time
other
paradox, I've heard.
I've heard um I've heard of it just the temporal paradox. That's what I've heard of it
Yes,
as
yeah.
called, a temporal paradox. Um, there's also the Fermi paradox or the Newcomb paradox, which are
I'd heard
different.
Fermi before, yeah.
Yeah, those are different like variations of it. But a temporal paradox is just a time travel paradox, and the grandfather paradox is like basically the one
Like
where you can't
potential.
stop your grandfather from like being your grandfather kind of thing.
Right.
Um,
I also noted a few shows that have done it pretty well recently, and by recently I mean 2008-ish to now. The
fair.
older one I have is Looper. I don't know if you ever watched that movie.
Yes.
I thought they did an excellent job. I've watched it one time.
I like that. I like the way they did it because I didn't know.
Yes.
When I can watch something and tell you what's going to happen, I don't always like it. That doesn't mean I don't, I do. Sometimes I still like it, but if I can tell you exactly the plot before I watched it,
Right.
it's not great. I didn't know that that was how they were doing that in Looper. So I appreciated that.
I definitely agree. I loved it. I was like, I'm never gonna. That was one of the movies I was like, I'm never gonna be able to watch this for the first time again, and that's a bummer. Like,
Yes.
because it was so good watching it the first time. And some newer shows for those of you that really liked this episode, because I did. I love the paradox episodes and stuff. Some newer shows that you do it really well. Umbrella Academy, very
Okay.
popular. It does a great job. And I actually just finished the show today. Paper Girls is
I
on Amazon
don't
Prime.
know
It
that
just finished
one.
its first season maybe a month ago. Like it's real new. Um, and it was really good. So I recommend everyone watching Paper Girls. MK, you would really like it, I think.
Okay, I believe it.
Um, yeah, so those are kind of my if you
I'm
like this,
trying
you'll like this other thing as well.
I'm trying to think of what some good examples that I know. Ooh, I can't use a phone today though, apparently.
Are you okay?
Um, it's just a thing that what? I'm I don't okay. I would like to not look up the scientific principle of how that works. That's not what I'm trying to discover right now at all.
That's the first thing that
Um,
came up for me too, and it was telling me all about how Stephen Hawking worked on it and stuff. And I was like, Ethan, I think it was Ethan Hyatt learned exactly how.
yeah,
Yeah, I have a huge history behind the grandfather paradox now. That I was
yeah.
just trying to look up movie titles to see which ones, and then I gave up and picked ones that I knew off the top of my head.
Um, there is obviously. There's a shit ton of it in Doctor Who. There's like a
Right.
million
Right.
episodes. Um, if you want to actually really think about how the time paradox, like the grandfather paradox, could go badly, season one, Christopher Eccleston episode, Father's Day, where Rose goes back to her own baptism and meets her dad.
Yes,
That's
yes.
a really good one. Um, Lost. That's the one I was thinking of.
Okay,
Lost has a
so
really weird one.
I would like to watch Lost and I haven't yet. So
Okay.
no spoilers.
Uh,
I know there's like huge spoilers for Lost and I
there
don't.
is huge spoilers for Lost. I won't tell you. Yes. Haha. Fringe has a great one that I won't go into because it's a huge
Oh,
spoiler for the whole show that I can't tell you. And then the one that is the most fucking awful emotional revelation of a grandfather paradox ever is in Game of Thrones.
which I also haven't watched. Great. I'll add it to the list. I like how all the ones you were picking were nothing I'd watch.
Okay. I can't. It
Right.
is like I am gonna cry just thinking about it. Anyone who's watched Game of Thrones, you know exactly what I'm talking about because like it is it is like the one thing in the whole show that nobody saw coming until it was happening, and then you were like, holy shit.
Maybe I'll watch
Yeah.
it soon.
I'm trying to think of what season that is. It's later in the show that you find it out though, so you'd have to watch a lot,
Well,
which
it's
is
fine.
fine.
I mean, if I'm gonna watch it, I'm gonna watch it all.
That's very true.
So,
Um, but yeah, so there's like the normal like Doctor Who, Star Trek, those are all gonna have
right.
your
Your
examples.
typical sci-fi is gonna have it for sure.
Exactly.
That's how I picked a
Uh,
few modern day ones that
yeah, I knew there was something in my head, and it was um
Game of Thrones.
the Game of Thrones one. Oh, and then like more casually, it's Harry and Hermione in Prisoner of Azkaban. Like
Oh yeah,
Harry, like
yeah.
that Harry doing the
The
Patronus to
time
save
turner.
himself. Like the time
Mhm.
turner is a really basic example.
Right, right.
Um, but anyway, um, sorry, I have a parent emailing me about the Christmas party. That is now a New Year's party. That is
Right.
tomorrow.
Excellent. That sounds fun.
Um, she just wanted to know if it's okay that she can't send the pizza until 8:30 instead of 7:30. No, it's fine. It's
Good
breakfast
morning.
pizza. It's breakfast pizza. But school starts at 7:30, but she can't get
Right.
the breakfast pizza there till 8:30. She's like, "Is that going to be a problem?" I was like, "No."
We'll still be there. We'll still be hungry.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, so okay, but so he does shoot the rocket. It does work. A bunch of soldiers come in, and then we have the credits.
Right.
So then after the credits, the officers are asking how they got in there. And Sam has the realization that they're still in the gate room. They're still in Cheyenne Mountain, but something is wrong. And so they're like, somebody's like, we have to take you to a holding room. And Jack's like, no, like, I want to see your CO. But obviously, he doesn't really have any authority here. So they lock them in the holding room and their weapons gets confiscated. And an officer is going through other weapons and he finds the letter from Hammond and it's addressed to George. And we realize on his face that he is George.
Right.
So um, then we go back to the holding room where Sam is explaining that what is going on because sometimes exposition has to be explained to the audience by explaining it to the dumb characters.
Mhm.
And she tells them that they've traveled back in time roughly 30 years. And Jack's like, I don't care where we are as long as we go home. And Daniel's like, yeah, but like we could get home before we left and then stop us from ever coming here. And he's like, or we could like do this. And like Teal'c's like, or we could like go and stop these things from happening. And they're like so excited about time travel. And Sam's like, this is an absolutely terrible idea. We cannot do any of those things.
But I love that Daniel Jackson's like big idea. He's like, we could go to Babylon. And I was like, there are also a lot of other places you could go. But I guess Babylon's the
Right.
one.
Like, I love how stopping Hitler, I was about to say stopping 9/11, but that hadn't happened yet.
Rough times. I
But
guess if you
like,
go backward, you could go forward, so they could have. They just wouldn't know.
just didn't know. But so like stopping Hitler, stopping Nagasaki and Hiroshima, like anything to do with World War II, like genocides of large groups of people in Africa. No, he wants to go to ancient Babylon. Which, to be fair, the destruction of ancient Babylon was the huge loss of a huge part of like historical culture that we don't know anything about.
Right. But I don't think he's gonna go fix it. I think
Oh
he's
no, he just wants to get artifacts and steal them before it gets destroyed.
right. Right.
Once
Right.
again, selfish. Fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so then she explains the grandfather paradox, which obviously, as Courtney and I have just explained, is that you cannot go back in time and kill your grandfather because then you will never have been born and you'll be stuck in a time loop.
Mhm. Mhm.
Soldiers come in the room, and this is the moment that we just see just how fucking stupid Daniel Jackson actually is. And they ask him in Russian if they are Soviet spies, and he responds in Russian. And Jack is like, you fucking idiot.
Oh, Daniel Jackson.
Because here's the thing, we don't know exactly when it is. They don't know exactly when it is. But Sam does know, based on the calculations of the time differential, that they're roughly 30 years in past,
Right.
and that they're at a place where they're testing rockets in Colorado.
Right.
So, never in the history of America, at a time where we are technologically able to test rockets in Colorado, did you want to work for the Soviets.
Right. Correct. So we just
Cool.
know that's a bad thing, regardless of.
Yeah. So they pull Jack out to interview him because he's clearly the leader. And Sam has already specifically instructed them that they cannot reveal who they actually are.
Good on her.
Yeah. And so when they pull him out and they interview him, Thornbird asks who he is. And he says that he is James Tiberius Kirk, captain of the Starship Enterprise.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, the very first episode of Star Trek, the original series, came out in 1966. So Captain Kirk was already a character in pop culture at this time, which does not necessarily mean that Thornbird would know who he is, because despite the longevity and cult following of Star Trek now, when Star Trek first came out, it actually wasn't super popular.
Just like every other sci-fi show that came out ever.
Correct.
Right.
Um, but like everybody kind of knew who Captain Kirk was. Um, so Thornbird starts asking Jack about the weapon, and he gives literally the sassiest answer I've ever heard. And like I used it on Dan this week because Jack says, or Jack goes, I really can't say. And he starts asking him, he's about what like what it is and like government secrets and it's classified and everything. And Jack just goes, no, it's just really hard to pronounce.
Yeah. I lost it.
Yeah. Um, and then he kind of figures out where he is relevant to time. And he goes, okay, I was lying about being Captain Kirk. My name is actually Luke Skywalker.
So this is where I start rewriting this because
Hold on, this is where I also wrote a note. At least Star Wars wasn't out yet.
yes. And so because of that, actually, I'll tell you my rewrites in a minute.
Okay. So at least Star Wars was not yet out, and so he realizes his mistake in being Captain Kirk, who is already known, and at least picks another sci-fi hero who could not possibly have been a TV character at that moment.
Right, right.
That's the last note I have for the scene.
Hmm.
If you want to talk about your rewrite now, or do you want to save it to the end?
I want to save it.
Okay, so then we get a flash to the present day where the gate operator of the episode, who I have no idea who he is because he's not the guy who it usually is, and he's not the guy who's in love with Sam, so don't know who he is. Um, he tells Hammond that like SG1 still hasn't checked in and they don't know what to do. And Hammond like forlornly stares at the gate and is like, "This is one mission they'll have to complete on their own."
So ominous.
So ominous. And that they can't send a search party. They just need to send SG5 to the other planet and just do the mission for them.
Hmm.
Which, whatever. But it's of course because Hammond knows what's going on and
Right.
none of the rest of us do.
Because he's a genius.
Um, so SG1 back in the past is being transported, and Jack is trying to tell them his plan. And Sam is like, the best plan is to try and live out the rest of our lives without affecting history and just stay here forever.
Which doesn't sound like a great plan.
It doesn't sound like a great plan. It also becomes an even worse plan when Teal'c explains that if the symbiote in his pouch goes like reaches maturity and he doesn't have the ability to replace it, it will take him over and he will become a full Goa'uld
Right.
and just like start killing people on Earth for shits. Um, that's super what we want to inflict
Fine.
on this 1970s.
Totally fine.
Oh, the transport van gets a flat, and George gets on the van and is like, "Who are you and why should I help you?" And Sam puts all the pieces together because she sees his name tag and it says Hammond, and she's like, "The note's from you." And he's like, "The fuck?" Um, but so Sam tells him the truth about who they are and how they got there. And they prove that they know him because they start talking about the moon landing, and he's like, "Yeah, everybody knows."
Right.
Like he's like, "That's not a secret." And they're like, "Yeah, but is it well known to the massive public that you watched it with your dad in the hospital after his first heart attack?" And he's like, "No, no, no, that one you could not know."
Also,
Great.
this guy sounds just like Don S. Davis.
Yes.
Like,
I don't know who the
my
guy is.
God.
I don't know who the guy is because he was not credited very high, so I talked about the other guy instead. But yeah, he very much has an amazingly good replicated speech pattern.
Right. Like, if I just closed my eyes, I would think I was listening to Don S. Davis. Do you know?
Right. Yes. Um, he unlocks their handcuffs and gives them back the Zat gun. Good for him. Um, and then he calls for help so that they can knock the other two men out. And we find out that their gear is in a separate truck. Jack destroys the rest of their gear, which also includes the videotape with the proof of them using the Zacon. Like he just destroys
Right.
everything. And then he tells him, he's like, "This is the only way the only thing that will prevent you from getting court-martialed. Thank you so much for everything you've done." He was like, "Do you have any cash?" He gives him cash and he's like, "I'll pay you back with interest. Thank you." And then he knocks him out with the Zacon.
And I was like, that sucks, but also like it is the only way to do it.
Correct. Absolutely. So then the team starts to head into the forest and look for the Stargate and figure out how to get home. But Hammond's note is hella cryptic and it just has two dates and two times. And
Right.
that's it. Um, so they get to the side of the road to try to get a car. And my note says the boys make Sam be the one to get them a car because 1969 sexism.
Absolutely. They did that and I was
Which
like, They're not wrong.
which had nothing to do with their feelings about Sam,
Right.
but more about the fact that they knew that in 1969, a woman alone hitchhiking, 15 times more likely to get a car than any of them.
Also, more likely to get killed than not by a serial killer at 69. But it's okay. She had backup.
I mean, that's true, but I think the serial killers in hitchhiking was not till the mid 70s.
I was thinking it was like
I,
early. I don't think it was acknowledged until the mid 70s. I think it was starting
probably.
before
I
then.
think
Like,
because I think it was like 74 when people started being afraid of hitchhiking.
right. So I think that's when
So,
they started,
like putting the pieces together.
yeah.
Sam, Daniel's like, we have to go find to New York because we have to ask Catherine where the gate is. And Sam's like, you can't meet Catherine. Like, the first time
We
you met
just
her was
talked
the
about this,
first,
Daniel Jackson.
like, we literally just explained it. He's like, no, we'll like go in disguise and pretend to be foreigners. And Jack was like, foreigners from where? And Daniel's like, fucking pick a place. I speak 23 languages.
So I looked it up. Did you look it up?
I did
How many
not look it up.
languages Michael Shanks speaks?
I did not look it up.
There was an interview after this episode where they were like, "So how many languages do you speak?" And he was like, "I speak a little French, not well." And that's it. Only language he speaks and not well. So
Yeah.
one and a half
Um,
languages is what he speaks, essentially. So I thought that was really funny.
what I really would like, that is not in my trivia, but should be, is a list of the 23 languages that Daniel Jackson speaks.
Yes. I would
Like, I
also.
want to know. Like, we know he speaks Greek and Latin and English,
Mhm.
obviously. We know he speaks Egyptian. We know he speaks German.
Mhm.
Um, and we know he speaks Russian. That
Right.
is six. With that, my guess would be that he would also speak French, Spanish, and Italian because that's just like their
Duh. They're
other
all the
their
same.
other romance languages. They have Greek and Latin roots. Like I get it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yiddish, maybe?
maybe.
Because it has the
Um,
same similarity
he
as German? German? Or Russian? I
well,
do this for Russian.
Yiddish is Jew is like a Hebrew.
Right, but it has a lot of the
Yeah,
same bases as one
it
of
would
those two.
German.
German, probably. Yeah,
But
that's
then
what.
I would also say he probably speaks Hebrew.
Right.
He probably speaks Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
And then because he probably speaks Arabic, he probably also speaks Persian or like Farsi.
Percy, yeah.
Um, that still only puts me at 12.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed any Asian languages, which
There's a lot of them.
there's a lot of them. And like based on the fact that he's a linguist of like ancient cultures, like he'd have to
Surely has
speak
some.
Chinese. But like what other combinations of Asian languages does he speak? I don't know. I don't know.
No idea.
Stargate, give me that list. I would like the comprehensive list of what languages Daniel Jackson speaks.
Got it. I will try to put it together for you.
I will actually not have you do that. I will look it up because I don't want you to get spoilers.
Right, but you look it up and bring it to our recap episode because I made
Perfect.
you do that, and now I'll let you do it so I don't get spoiled.
Yes, because I just was thinking about like even I was going to tell you something about something that's really cool on the Reddit page for Stargate, and then I was like, but I can't tell you to do that because then I don't know what else you'll see. Because one of the people who's super active in the Reddit page for Stargate is one of the creators of the show. And so anytime you're on Stargate's Reddit and you're looking at concept art, it's actually original unreleased concept art.
That's very cool.
It is very cool, but you can't see it yet unless I find
8 more
specific
years.
posts to send you. But then
Yeah,
even then you can look at the art, but not the
just screenshot them and send them to me.
right.
Then I won't have any links to follow.
True. Hold on, I'm making a note. What languages does Daniel speak?
Because I would
Okay.
also like to know that. We should we should ask Doug before, like when we record. Like you should find the answer, but then you should ask him before you tell us the answer.
That is fantastic. I also haven't told Doug he's recording.
Oh, well, he's got a couple weeks.
Two.
Literally a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'll talk to him this week.
Great.
Right now he's pissing me off because he was in Florida. and I sent him a picture of a salad and said, thinking about you, Happy New Year's. And he sent me a picture of how blue the sky was in Florida. And I was like, fuck off.
Hmm.
Anyway, while they're discussing this, Sam has yet to pick up a car with her hitchhiking. And Teal'c has decided that this is not effective and is taking too long and just like walks out into traffic and stops a bus.
Yes.
Um,
Even though it took like 30 seconds, it's like he didn't even wait a full minute. It
no.
was just
The bus that he stops is a hippie bus that's headed to Woodstock.
nothing makes me happier than hippies in Stargate. I understand that's not going to be a common concept, but
Yeah.
it
No,
brought
it
me
was
so much
amazing. Their
joy.
names are Michael and Jenny, and they are headed to Woodstock. And the best thing about it is they don't even know what it's called. They're just like, yeah, there's just like some big outdoor concert in upstate New York, and like we're gonna go and like peace, love, and jams. And I was
And
like,
this is where I decided to rewrite the episode. I wanted Michael to be George Lucas, and I wanted when they started telling them all these crazy things happening and they were overhearing all this stuff and he told him his name was Luke, that like they took that's where George Lucas gets his idea and runs with it to make Star Wars, which feels like it would have been something that happened in Doctor Who that they would have
yeah,
done the storyline. And I think it would
yeah,
have, because this episode wasn't related to the rest of Stargate really, it would have
it's
been fun to make
yeah.
that a storyline.
So the hippies are like obsessed with them. Because like Jenny is obsessed with the fact that Sam has like modern woman hair. Like they're just like fucking obsessed. And Michael keeps asking all of like Teal'c all of these questions. And he's like, so that like thing on your head, man, like what is it? What does it stand for? And he's like, slavery to the overlords. And he's like, fucking right on, man. And like Teal'c is unintentionally everything that hippies want in life. And so then Michael starts telling Teal'c about how he's gonna like run away to Canada to like avoid the draft. And Teal'c has no idea what the Vietnam War is. So that was a moment of like a pit in my stomach because I knew
He's
that
like,
was gonna come back.
are you gonna come? Are you gonna go? He's like, there's wars happening. He's like, are you gonna start a war in Canada? And he's like, no.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, we're like gonna go there for the war. And he was like, the war with Canada? There has never actually officially been a war between the US and Canada. Like there were like the War of 1812 and the French and Indian War like involved the US and Canada, but like the two of us were not at war with each
Canada's like
other.
hella chill. Like,
I have strong feelings about Canada, and they're not what most people have about Canada.
well, they like stay to
Um,
themselves really well, I feel like
yeah, but here's
though.
the thing. The real problem is they can't start a war with us because they don't have a military. They use
Oh,
force.
yes, yes, that's also true.
Like that's the actual reason. Like chill, sure. Also completely dependent on us in terms of
Also
military
true.
prowess.
I forgot about that part, but still.
Um, so then they go on a feel good road trip that I think is an entire waste of time. I
Very
get
much.
it. I get it. They're showing us what, but like we're like watching the little red line on the map and every stop they go to and then buying hippie clothes. And I'm like, what the fuck show am I watching?
Right. It doesn't like it has so much unnecessary content in this episode.
Um, So then they're sitting in the woods around a fire, and Sam explains the entire of the episode in about 5 minutes.
Hmm.
And it turns out that a solar flare must have been what happened because then her calculations would have been misguided and it would have like made them slingshot back to the earth at the wrong time period. I'm just throwing things. And that the times that Hammond wrote down must be possible solar flare events that he then went and looked up using her research or blah blah blah. And they're like, what if he made you research this because he already knew this was going to happen? And you know,
So my
the
question for you that you may not have an
yeah,
answer to, this solar flare theory revolving
yeah,
around time travel, is this
yeah.
something that's been um examined in the past? Is this one of like would this been one of like Tesla's theories? Because I know he
Um,
did a lot of time travel. theories that mostly,
I
but
don't actually know.
hmm, I'm gonna look into that for me.
Yeah, I
Probably not for
will.
everyone else, sorry, but for me.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure.
Hmm,
Um,
I bet so.
but probably like it had to
We're
have
just
come
gonna say
from
yes.
somewhere.
We're gonna say it came from Tesla, Nikola Tesla,
I mean, honestly,
because he
everything
passed.
came from Nikola Tesla.
Truly though,
Um,
wild. His life was insane.
I'm obsessed. As someone who grew up in Niagara Falls, there is no other answer other than Nikola Tesla is everything.
Yeah, I'm not from there, and I still use Nikola Tesla as the answer for everything. So
Yeah. There's a statue of him at Niagara Falls, and I take a picture with it every time I go to the falls.
there's a bar downtown that's based on him, and it has birds on the ceiling, and I need to take you there. It's incredible. The cocktails are hella expensive, but they're delicious too.
But I mean, there's birds and Tesla.
Because he loved birds,
I know, but like I also love him and birds.
but it's all themed around him, like even the drink titles and stuff. It's right up your alley. We'll go one day.
And phenomenal. As they're having this whole conversation about the science of what actually happened, the hippies are listening to them. And they're like, "Who are you guys?" And they're like, "Oh, we're just like using our imaginations." And he's like, "No, the fuck you're not." Uh, and they convince them that they're aliens who need help to leave Earth, which, like, of course they did.
Right, right.
Um, so the hippies bring them to New York and they drop Teal'c and Jack off at an observatory. And Jack is like, we only have one shot at this, and I don't want to mess up Sam's theory. And then Teal'c reminds or reminds the audience that Jack does astronomy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because Teal'c is like, isn't astronomy like your hobby? And as he said that, I go, oh yeah, that's right. Jack is like and I was like, that line was 100% to remind the audience that we have seen
Absolutely.
this before. This is not because I was like, why did they drop these two off at
Yeah. I
the
also had
observatory?
that
And then
thought.
he said that line, and I go, just kidding. Makes sense.
Yes.
Um, so then Sam and Daniel go to Catherine's to find out about the location of the Stargate. And they like weirdly cryptically talk in German, and the servant is like kind of watching them and kind of following them, and like it definitely feels like this is a setup for something that's going to happen later in the show, that she like
Right.
knows shit that she shouldn't know.
Mhm.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they find out that the Stargate is hidden in an armory in DC. And Jack sees a solar flare and knows that that's
Sam's
correct.
theory was right. Yeah.
And Sam's theory was right, and that they need, which also like good for fucking General Hammond for knowing to give them two so that they could test the theory before they tried.
Right, right.
Um, so
I also
then,
felt like Catherine would not have fallen for it that easily.
right.
Like I know he like gave some names that she knew or whatever, but still, like I feel like she's super smart and super
Yeah, I did
under the
not like the
wire
way
about
they
stuff.
painted Catherine in this episode.
Yeah. I
Um, but then we're on the bus and then we're on the way to DC and we find out that Michael got drafted, and it's like really heartbreaking because
really sad.
they're like begging them to take them to outer space with them. They're like, we can't do that. And he's like, and Jenny's like, Michael got drafted. And then there's like a moment and Jack is like so angry and like wants to start saying something, and Sam has to like stop him and is like, you can't say anything.
I feel like if I was alive during this time, I would have been a hippie. Like I totally understand the
Yeah.
importance of military and whatnot, but I really hate the draft. You
Yeah.
know, I like it's double-edged sword for me. It's like it feels like it was I wasn't there, but it feels like it was probably important and or necessary, but at the same time it feels really
Right.
abusive and
Yeah. Well,
not nice.
but I mean, even now there's like a lot of countries that have mandatory enlisted service.
And I hate it.
And
I hate it. I like it. I like that it's voluntary here now for the most part. We'll see.
yeah, Yeah,
Everyone has to sign up for the draft, so it is still a possibility in the world, but
correct. I think that women should be forced to be drafted too, not because I want to be
right.
drafted at all, but because I think that those women who are fighting so vehemently for like equal rights need to like accept that if you have equal rights, you also have equal responsibility for those rights.
No,
And
I
not
absolutely agree because
not that
I
I'm
agree
saying
with equal rights, and I think women should be
yeah,
drafted.
like
There's
no,
no
I mean,
difference.
I was just saying, not that I'm saying I'm against equal rights. Like that came
Yeah,
off being very much like I don't think we should have equal rights, which is not what I was saying at all.
right.
But I think that like the privilege of having the rights that you have in America comes with responsibilities, and like paying taxes and voting are part of those responsibilities. And I think that like the draft is also part of those responsibilities,
Right.
and that like women should be forced to also agree to the draft.
Yeah, and I
And
think
like and like
I
hopefully
agree.
hopefully we're never in a situation where we need the draft again. But like if we do, it should not be men only.
I agree. No, I agree with that for sure. And, like, I am in the sense that like I hate the draft and I wish it didn't exist. And at this point, I don't think it's necessary
Mm-hmm.
anymore. But if it is, then it's everyone. It's
Yeah.
that's how it's meant to be because again, I think leaving women off of something like that makes women look lesser in the eyes of the government anyways because they're saying
Mm-hmm.
that like men are the only ones who are strong enough to do this, the only ones that are like meant to be the providers, protectors, and it's like women can do that too. And like there's women in the
Mm-hmm.
military, there's plenty of women in the military, so it's like
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's never been a little more. Well, I understand why then it wasn't more equal. I don't understand
Right.
now why it isn't more equal in
Correct.
the military. So
Um, but so we get a really sad moment that we will never actually see again. So like it was kind of emotional for no reason, which was upsetting, but it's fine. And then they break into the facility where the gate is, and they use a truck to turn the gate on.
yeah, thank God they found the Stargate.
And then they like get attacked.
Mhm.
So they jump into the Stargate
But also,
too
like,
soon.
they get attacked, and it looks like because they didn't close all the doors. Like, I
Oh,
don't
of
know if
course.
some of those entryways just didn't have doors that closed, or if they just like,
Maybe, but also the guy clearly heard the truck running.
right. But he heard it because they didn't close all the doors. I was like, why would you not like cover your bases when you go in somewhere?
But so because they jumped in too soon, they actually ended up like too far in the future,
Mhm.
and Cassandra sends them back to where they need to go.
But I really liked the effects they used to show the difference between traveling through time there
Yeah.
and traveling towards the future as opposed to how they've used it in the past. And it's a really good
Um,
different
yeah.
differentiation.
And I like that like Cassandra was like, I can't tell you anything. Like
Right.
I can't tell you
At
anything.
first, I thought it was future Sam.
I did too for a second, but then I liked that it wasn't.
I did too. Hmm.
And so then they go home and Hammond explains everything that happened and how he knew that this was the correct mission to send the note with them and that he remembers finding the note when he was a lieutenant and how Sam's hand is what like tipped him off. And then he tells Jack that with interest, Jack owes him $539.50.
Hmm. Hmm. Correct.
So, you know,
I did think that was cute.
it's and obviously Jack agrees to pay him because why wouldn't he?
Right.
Um, because remember, we've talked about how these guys get paid for this job that they're doing, and they definitely never leave base.
Right. They just have money.
Yeah, especially Daniel and probably Jack.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Until, because he probably didn't know what to do with it.
Well, Teal'c also might not get paid.
That's true too. We're gonna pretend like he does though, because I like that better.
Sure, sure. Um, you did already talk about your rewriting of
Mhm.
the story. Do you have any other thoughts or comments before I get into trivia?
I do. I have a prediction of sorts.
Okay.
Sandra is meant to be like the river song of Doctor Who because we've now seen her as a child, and then we
Mm-hmm.
saw her as an old woman who was sending them back to help protect them. And we know that her and Sam have talked in the middle somewhere because Sam had to give her these instructions. And
Yeah,
I wonder if she's like that in between that like that constant thread like River Song is.
maybe.
So
Maybe.
that's a thought I had. Um,
Okay.
I think my other thought is that this is the penultimate episode of season two, and they filmed season one and season two not knowing where they were going, and this is the next to last episode for all they know when this came out or whenever it
Except
got recorded.
except that it's not. And I know it's not because they basically gave us a clue in this episode. And I have no idea, this is not in the trivia. This is just my thoughts. They gave us a clue in this episode that they had already been picked up for season 3. And that was as they were leaving Cassandra, she says, "Don't worry, your journey is just beginning."
Right, right. So I got that part, but I
Yeah.
think they wanted it to be. But didn't they record the first two seasons before they released the first season?
No, no, no. They were picked up for 2 seasons to start immediately. That doesn't necessarily mean that they filmed everything as a block.
Oh,
Like they still filmed in blocks, in chunks, but
right.
that doesn't mean that they filmed everything at once.
Got it. I understood that they had filmed it all in blocks before like release and
No, 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 no.
gotcha. Okay. Then yeah,
Um,
never mind. This makes more sense.
okay. The very first piece of trivia is the fact that Star Trek came out in 1966, but Star Wars didn't come out until 1977, which I took notes about as we were watching because I'm a nerd and I know those things. Um, Daniel Jackson tells Colonel O'Neill that he was 4.5 in 1969, which means that he was born in either 1964 or 1965. That is completely useless trivia, but at least we know.
Right. Now we know.
Um, this when General Hammond tells Jack that he owes him $539.50 to pay back for the loan, if you account for simple interest at a prime rate of 8% for August of 1969, Lieutenant Hammond would have had to have loaned the colonel $161.29.
Which does not look like what he loaned him.
No, I think he had got like 5.
Right. Right.
The supposedly New York observatory where O'Neill checks for the solar flares was actually the Gordon Macmillan Southam Observatory in Vancouver, which is open to the public but was not built until 1979.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They're not very good at their dates.
They're also, because they're filming everything in Vancouver, they're not really good at making things that aren't Vancouver.
Right, right.
When they're at the bottom of the Titan missile just before the launch, there's a short shrieking sound in the audio, which is actually accurate because the Titan used a liquid fuel and it would make that sound just before launch when the turbine fuel pump was turned
Oh,
on.
interesting.
This is one of my favorite ones, and I did know this trivia before I started watching it. I just didn't take a note about it during the episode. When they get the newspaper when they're in New Jersey, it is dated August 10th, 1969, and it is a fictional newspaper, but all of the headlines are real,
Oh,
including the fact that one of the headlines is reporting the death of Sharon Tate and her 4 companions, which happened on August 8th of 1969.
oh my goodness.
Yes. So
Okay.
they showed a close up of the newspaper and the 2 headlines. One was about Richard Nixon and one was about Sharon Tate.
Yeah, I
And they
saw the
were,
Richard Nixon one.
yes, the other one was Sharon Tate and 4 friends found murdered.
Wow. Wild.
Not because I like love him, but because like that
You,
is fascinating. And we've talked about my feelings on Charles Manson before.
I know we share the same birthday. Not anymore because he's dead.
Correct. Um, During the hippie van montage, we get a short look at a highway map for Amarillo, Texas. And the map is shown as an Interstate 40, but an earlier road sign said Route 66. In the 60s and 70s, the iconic Route 66 was being upgraded and rebuilt as I-40. And when the
Mm,
rebuild was going on, some sections would have been labeled one or the other. So that's actually not a typo on the map.
yeah, that's interesting. So they're good
Um,
at geography. They're bad at dates.
Correct.
Got it. Got it.
The disadvantage of filming in British Columbia is that the arid scrub desert of New Mexico looks like a lush coastal taiga forest. That's the wording of that is my
Yes.
favorite.
Yes.
Um, the episode takes place sometime in 1999 between August 4th and 11th. Oh, it says it takes place in three parts. 1999 sometime between August 4th and 11th of 1969 and then the mid 21st century.
Got it.
Um, this is the second of Alex Zahara's six appearances on the show, but the only time where his face is visible and not under makeup.
And this is the one who played Michael, right? That you talked about earlier?
Yes, yes. So he has six different appearances on the show. The first one was Zal's, and this is the second one. But this is the only time we see his face.
Interesting.
Um, this says when the hippies in the van pull over for the team, they mention being on their way to upstate New York for some big concert. Woodstock was held between August 15th and 18th in 1969 in Bethel, New York. Obviously, I literally wrote going to Woodstock in my notes.
Yep.
In this one, I did not write, but I thought, and I should have written. At around 24 minutes and 15 seconds into the episode, which is sometime during the hippie van montage when they buy new outfits, Teal'c is seen wearing a clothing ensemble that looks exactly like Jimi Hendrix for some reason.
I thought that too. Yes, I almost put that down and I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I made that up.
Nope. Nope. Yeah, he's dressed like Jimi Hendrix.
Excellent.
So, there's that.
Fine.
Um, yeah. So next week is the
Wait,
finale of Bethany
wait.
or of this season two. I know. Oh, I know. I'm just saying
But we're
like
not
next
there
week.
yet.
Next week is the finale. And this season has been so massively inconsistent on whether it's following an arc or doing really weird but pleasurable one-offs.
Right.
And I have quite literally no idea what to expect for the season finale. None. Like no idea. So
No.
there's that. Um
Daniel Jackson probably gets married again. I thought for sure he was gonna fall in love with this girl, Jenna. Was that her name? Jenna?
Jenny.
Jenny.
Yeah.
He was gonna fall in love with Jenny.
Oh yeah. I don't even know what to think
It's just
about
been
the
a minute
next
since he
episode.
like
It's
found a new partner.
That's very true.
So,
But like also we saw him get like really angry about not being able to find Sharae. So like maybe it's because he's actually remembering he's married.
that'd be nice. Maybe he'll
Yeah.
actually find Shari again.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I never know what to expect.
I know. Such a talk.
Speaking speaking of not knowing what to expect, because I don't know what to expect for your answers for these questions at all, because weirdly there is no villain in this episode. So who would you like to punch?
Daniel Jackson. For just being wildly inconsistent, I feel like, in his whether he's correct or not. He is so gung ho in this episode every time he says something. And there are so many bad ideas, so
Yeah,
many bad things he comes up with.
so many.
And
Yeah,
I just want to punch him in the face.
honestly fair. I think I will have to punch um Thornbird for being a dick when he was interrogating Jack, purely because there's no one left to punch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, he wasn't like the most egregious asshole we've ever seen, but
We don't
like,
hate him. He can come back if
right,
he wants. But like,
but
yeah.
but um, who is your MVP?
You know, I was split between two people,
Okay,
and I think I'm gonna have to go with Sam. I think she held this mission
very valid.
together. It's
Yeah,
her research that even got us there.
yeah.
And she just was so smart about everything.
I agree. I was also split between two people because I figured you would pick Sam. So then I was trying to figure out who would be my second choice, and I was split between two. Um, and I think, but for very different reasons.
Mhm.
I think I have landed on Hammond
He would have been my second.
because that is like he kept the secret quiet. He didn't tell them ahead of time what was going to happen. He did what he had to do to not do the grandfather paradox and still get them home safely, like everything that he should have done.
Mhm.
But I was also torn because Michael just gave me all of the feelings.
Bless him.
Yeah. But I think I have to go with Hammond because in terms of the actual mission and the episode, it only succeeded because Hammond did the correct thing and not the emotionally
30 years ago.
driven thing. Right.
Yeah. It wasn't even like a one-off. It was like he's
And it's
been
like
doing this.
and he did something 30 years ago and then remembered it well enough to know how to help now.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that is that is that.
Mm-hmm.
It is it's a time. It's a
It's a time to be alive.
it sure is. But with that, you can let us know what you would do if you time traveled back to 1969 on any of the social medias at Death and Aliens or by emailing us at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can follow me everywhere and send me condolences for my broken butt at EMKAY_superstar.
You can find me everywhere at CE Cloud 13.
See you on Thursday for our Thriller Thursday episode where we
This
talk about the
season.
finale of
Ah,
season 4.
it's gonna be wild. See ya.
So wild. Bye.